Um, what was that like for you to work with those campers and to work with that group and to make this movie? It's not your first one. You've participated in some other
Yeah,
ones, but
I think this is our seventh.
um, tell our listeners what it's like to work with, to work in a camp such as this with people who have disabilities and who don't, and what that atmosphere is like.
Yeah, I think, well, prior to joining camp, which was probably 8 years ago now, I'd never had much experience with people who had disabilities. And I think that there was a big stigma for me about it, if I'm being really honest. Like, I didn't know how to interact. But this camp, probably a lot because no one pays to come and no one gets paid to be there. It's people who want to be there. It's such a loving experience. And my experience of the campers is just that they're such gifts. They're such gifts. And that I used to feel like, I think when I first started spending time there, I used to think like, oh, I'm doing something good. And that perception shifted really quickly, realizing like, no. We're all getting something from this. There's no altruism in this. This is a mutually beneficial relationship, and there's no savior here. We're all helping each other.
If you want to watch a trailer of this is on YouTube. Just search "Becoming Bulletproof." I think Aras, you're on the trailer.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
Sorry, Aras. Darn it, I'm going back to my
That's
easier
all right.
days. So you're gonna have a movie premiere in New York. You've had one in LA.
And we'll probably do another one in LA in the
Okay.
spring as well.
Where can people find information
Yeah.
if they want to attend the premiere or if they want to watch the movie?
Yeah. So if you go to zenomountainfarm.org, ZENO, and then mountainfarm.org, that's the organization. And we're always looking for volunteers to come cook and to hang out and volunteer.
Are you cooking too? Are you a cook?
Sometimes I cook there. Sometimes I cook. But it's really just an unbelievably enjoyable experience to be around, and I encourage everybody to come.
How long does the camp run?
Yeah, so we do like 5 different residential camps a year. One's a month long, one's 2 weeks long, and then 2 are 1 week long each. So
Okay, and what are the camp to counselor ratios?
it's 1-to-1.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you're a camper, you get one counselor. If you're a counselor, you get one camper. And
Okay.
you develop really strong bonds. My first camper, his name was Alec Bandler, and he was 12 years old when I was his counselor, and he comes every Christmas for the last 7 years. He comes and stays with my family for Christmas now, and he's like family.
Well, I mean, I really want to see the movie. I look forward to it. I've watched the trailer more than a few times, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's honestly it's a fantastic film.
But we're gonna shift a little bit. So we've gotten into your music, we've gotten into the movies. You also have a line of hats called Tundra Gear.
Yeah, Winter Hat Company.
And that actually started that started before your music career.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
talk about
absolutely.
how that started and why you don't have a UC Irvine pin listed on your website.
I'll talk about all that. My father started a winter hat company after the Soviet Union collapsed. He imported all these Russian winter hats.
Okay.
And when I was at UC Irvine at the GSM, which is now the Paul Mirage School of Business,
Right.
I was in a marketing class, and we had to do a project on a kind of a smaller company and see how you might remarket the company and do bigger things with it. So I chose my father's company and created this company called Tundra Gear instead of his company, which was Baltic Rim.
Okay.
And this is all just theoretical.
Right.
And cut to a few years later, I'm like, that's actually a pretty good idea. I think I'm going to do that. And so I started Tundra Gear, and I bought my dad out from his business. And so we sell basically winter hats. They look like Russian winter hats, but we call them Tundra hats. And then we sell pins that attach to the front. So we have NFL pins, NHL pins, NBA, NCAA. And you asked why we don't have UC Irvine Anteater pins.
Well, I just didn't see it on the website.
We don't have UC Irvine Anteater pins, and that's just because there's not a huge market here. It's not cold enough
That's true.
to wear a Tundra hat. But if you're in Green Bay, that's the place to wear a Tundra hat.
Is that where most of your hats are being shipped?
Yeah, we sell a lot to Wisconsin. We sell a lot to Minnesota. If you can imagine the colder states.
Well, Bob Olson is from North Dakota, South Dakota. Can't remember. Minnesota. Sorry, Bob. I can't remember. He goes. Well, his parents live in Minnesota now, so I think we need to get him a hat.
Oh, I'd get Bobo a hat. I'll stop over there right now.
I figured you would. Okay, I looked at your website, and you have some celebrity sponsors. It's Tom Arnold, Terrell Owens, Warren Sapp. How did they come on board?
Yeah, I just contacted them. I talked to their agents and offered them back-end deals, and so they all agreed to it.
And I'm told to ask you, I saw someone wearing a Tundra Gear hat at a Clippers game.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Yeah, so we sell in the Staples Center now, and so they order.
Wait, you can sell them in LA, but you can't sell them in Orange County.
Well,
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, all right, fine. I'm a bad alumni.
No, you're not.
Probably use them right now.
Yeah, no. Funny enough, this is the time for them for sure in LA this weekend. But it's going to be 75 degrees on Thursday, and then everyone's going to pine their purchase. They're going to want to return them. So.
Oh, there is no return policy for this hat in LA. Any other collaborations? Are you continually reaching out to, people in those states like NFL stars, NBA stars?
Yeah. It's constantly evolving, and like a New Era is a huge hat company. They just started offering a similar hat, so they're kind of elbowing us out of the market, so we have to evolve and get creative, and that's kind of the fun part of owning a business. Yeah, but one of my teachers told me, he said, act like you're playing with the house money.
Okay.
And so I've tried to use that in business, is obviously make smart decisions, but don't take any of it too seriously.
Now with the music, how much time and effort are you able to put into the hat line?
Yeah, I spend, if you can imagine a proper job, that's how much time I spend at Tundra Gear.
Okay.
And then obviously, as a small business owner, you're never off the clock.
Right.
You get an email, you reply to it once you get it, and with technologies these days, unfortunately, you can be emailed at any time of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put in a lot of hours with Tundra Gear, but then with music, it's what I want to do all the time. So whenever I have a chance, I just pick up the guitar and I play it.
So you're probably not sleeping a whole lot.
I love to sleep too, so I managed to get those hours in. I don't watch TV. There's a lot of things I don't do. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of time in the day. You can always find space, I think, for things you love.
We're going to go and we're going to segue into TV, Survivor.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've talked about it ad nauseum, but if you've never met Aras and you didn't know he was on Survivor, he won Survivor. How did you, on a whim, did you just decide to sign up? Did you know someone who had...
Kind of a whim. So after UC Irvine, mm-hmm. I went to Europe to go play professional basketball, got offered a few contracts, realized that I didn't want to play basketball anymore, came back home and started studying yoga, moved to South Africa, opened a little yoga studio.
How was that?
That was amazing. That was wonderful.
I've always wanted to ask you about that, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, that was an incredible experience.
Was it received well, yoga?
Yeah, well, there was no yoga studios in Cape Town at the time. Okay. And I had only really been studying yoga for 4 or 5 months, so I was only teaching just this little bit that I knew. But there was no yoga studios there, I guess there was one Ashtanga studio, but not the style that I practiced. Okay. And so people had never been exposed to it, so they, of course, anytime they had access to something new, you're going to love something like yoga. But there was no yoga mats anywhere. I couldn't buy yoga mats, so I went to the rubber factory. There was a rubber factory, and I had them cut me strips of rubber, and that's what my students would practice on.
You just found a rubber company in South Africa, and
well, that was like my best choice, right, for my students to practice on.
That's amazing. But that's something that I could just see you doing. Just like, oh, rubber company on there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was great. So, anyways, I come back from South Africa when my visa expires 6 months later, and I do a yoga teacher training, which is in Santa Cruz at Mount Madonna, which is the hills above Santa Cruz. And I was living in a tent for 21 days or however long the teacher training was. And I come back from this experience. I go right into a 10-day silent meditation of Vipassana, which is up in Northport. And then when I come home, that night I get home, my buddy says, oh man, I just got asked to do Survivor by this casting agent. And I said, well, are you going to do it? He goes, no, I'm way too skinny. I said, well, yeah, I'll do it. Send her my information. So he sends her my information, and that's how I ended up getting on the show.
Was it as catty and competitive as it seemed, as it was edited to be?
Right. It is really competitive, and there are times where people can be really catty. But if you can imagine, it's all day long.
Right.
And so what they edit down is they edit down the most dramatic, the cattiest, the most competitive moments. But for a lot of that 24 hours, for 22, 23 hours a day, it's just life. And that's why that show is such a fascinating show, is because people let their guard down. They know there's a camera there, but at a certain point you just you kind of let it all hang loose, and you're so hungry, you're so tired, you're so thirsty. That show is beyond real in terms of how gnarly it is out there, that everything comes up.
Was there ever a point where you thought, my health is in danger? Because there were times when you know, there's no food, there's no water, you have to work for it, and you're just exhausted.
Yeah, I think I had done enough fasts, enough cleanses to know that my body could easily take kind of the limited amount of food that we were getting out there. There was a time where I wanted to quit, though, and that was on the third day. And I was so miserable. I had no idea how hard it was going to be. And I watched a bunch of seasons before I left. And that's what I think viewers don't get, is that show is so challenging. Beyond no food, no water, no sleep. No one to trust. And we are social creatures. And trust is such an embedded part of our everyday experience that once you pull that out of it, it's a really lonely, isolating experience.
Well, so you took away from that, obviously, that you can survive the harshest, most, insane climates, and not even climates, but social situations.
Yeah.
And, that's amazing. I'm going to ask you something really quickly. We're running out of time, but I'm told you're a wood craftsman.
Yes.
And is there something that you just can't do, because it seems like you're doing everything? But how did you get started in woodwork?
It started with my girlfriend and I moved into a place with a very strangely shaped kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so we needed a kitchen table, and I couldn't find one out in stores. So I said, well, I'll just build one. And that's how it started.
You just decided to pick up some tools and...
Yeah, well, my father is a carpenter, so
okay.
I watched him. I was on job sites a lot,
okay.
And so I kind of had some experience with wood. And he's a great consultant to ask, when you run into a problem. But
okay.
you know what, I think that, but in answer to that question, is there something you can't do? I think there's really nothing. There's very few things that we all can't do. If barring physical disability, if you just spend time learning it, there's nothing that's really that complicated. And I think that's true for all of us. If you just take the time to give yourself permission to suck for a while, you're gonna get good. But you have to go through that process of not being very good first.
That's pretty good advice. Give your permission to suck.
Yeah.
I like it. One more thing that I need to ask you is Irvine Hoops. I'm supposed to ask you, what is BTG?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I'm not going to answer it on air.
Okay.
But, it's not like it's not a bad thing. It's a
okay.
good thing. Fine, I'll answer it on air. My freshman year playing basketball, Jordan Harris was a redshirt. Jordan Harris was really good.
Yep.
Matt Okoro, myself, and a couple other guys were on the blue team. And the way Coach Douglas used to run his practices is the starters were on the white team, and the guys coming off the bench were on the blue team. And we had a good team that year, a really good team. But the blue team would consistently crush the white team in practice. So we gave ourselves a moniker, which was Blue Team Gangsters. And it was like a way of pumping ourselves up every practice. Because, we have to play more defensive possessions. We wouldn't get the ball as much.
Right.
But we were really good. And I think that's one of the reasons we had such a banner year that year where we went 25-5.
Are you still hooping it up?
I am. I play in a couple leagues.
I heard you're pretty intense in your rec leagues.
Yeah, no, I get after it. What's funny is when I played ball at UC Irvine, I wasn't much of an offensive juggernaut, to say the least. But since then I've been able to kind of blossom as an offensive threat out there.
Well, I have fond memories of watching you come in, and hey, you took care of the rock.
That's right, I took care of the rock.
That's all we needed you to do.
Good defensive player.
Yeah.
All I needed to do was defend and let Jerry do the rest.
Exactly. So. Aras, I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk to you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great fun.
And maybe when you are able to come back and talk about your next album, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Great. We were talking with Aras Baskauskas, Anteater alumnus from UC Irvine, played on the men's basketball team. We'll be right back with Colin Mehring on the UC Irvine Blue and Gold Report on KUCI 88.9 FM.